but a lot of our main markets, especially US and China, are recovering nicely. So we wanted to hear more about that from Marty and of course Sanjay Bhai and all our Diamond panel members who've been invited today on. And today's session is more of hearing, I guess, everyone's thoughts on what we see to the best of our knowledge with the data that we have today on what the next 2, 3, 4 quarters look like. Having said that, Sanjay Bhai, I guess, on the India side and needs no introduction. He's our Diamond panel convener. We have with us Marty Rappaport. He also, I guess, in the Diamond part of the world, whether it's India or globally, doesn't really need any introduction. But Marty, I must share with you that I was pleasantly surprised to read actually when I was reading your introduction that you actually started as a diamond cleaver in 1975, and you had the foresight in 1978 to create the Rappaport Diamond Report. So, at least even in my generation, I thought this was like a 15, 20-year-old phenomena, but I didn't realize that you actually started in 1980, and the RapNet was started in 1980. And today, we have nearly 930,000 diamonds which are listed worth around $6 billion on RapNet. There we have 7,000 members across 80 countries. And Marty is, I guess, very outspoken advocate for diamonds. Sometimes, we like him, and sometimes, many people don't like him. But nonetheless, he's been an advocate for diamonds. And I guess before we start the presentation, a big question, and maybe I guess, I don't know how you're going to respond to that over the next 30, 40 minutes, 1 hour that we have. But at least since most of our, viewers today are diamond manufacturers, one big question which everyone has is that when are diamond prices going up? So, so on that light note, over to you, Marty, to start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. It was very kind. Welcome. Let's take a look over here. I'll just start sharing my screen so we can bump into the when are diamond prices going up is a wonderful question. And I hope as soon as people pay more for them. But we will talk a little bit about what's going on and try to share some of that information as we move along. The idea of 2022 and beyond was an idea that we should think about the future. We are now living in a very strange time of uncertainty. And we need to think about how do we move on? Where do we go? And we can't actually predict the future. We can look at different scenarios. You can say, well, what happens if interest rates go up? Wow, that's a big one. What happens if China and America get into currency warfare and the United States doesn't take in any more money, doesn't allow, raises tariffs? There's all kinds of things that we don't know, but we can think about different scenarios. So I'm going to move along over here. Let me just get rid of this bottom thing here. Bingo. And then let me move along. So first, I want to say thank you to the GJAPC and its team for organizing the webinar. And thank you to the panelists, Colin Shah and Sanjay Shah. I really thank you to everybody who has made some effort to put all this together. Brief 2 slides in the Rappaport group. We're based on values, ethical, transparent, competitive, efficient markets. And when you take transparency and competition like you do with, say, RapNet, you create all kinds of trouble. You create all kinds of change. You create all kinds of disruption. But these are our values, and we try to make sure that we can do them. We were established in 1978. That takes us back about 43 years now. So 130 employees. We used to have more, but we've let some go, and some people have left. 20,000 clients, 121 countries. And we're in the added value services business. We don't really maintain our own inventory. We don't buy diamonds to trade ourselves. We have 4 major divisions: information, the price list, magazine, diamonds.net, RapNet, which is now moving into jewelry very strongly, which we see a tremendous future for. Auctions and trading services, where a lot of our Indian clients buy at our recycled auctions. We're the largest recycler of diamonds in the world today. And quality control and certification. While we no longer represent the GIA in India, we are doing a lot of work with quality control and certification. So now we have to take a moment just to be aware of what's happening around us, even before business. COVID has had a huge impact worldwide. Over 3 million people have passed away. and there's more than 150 million cases. India, tremendous issue here. And about almost 300, 280, whatever, thousand people passed away, and about 10 times that have had the COVID, and it's a very scary time. So I'm going to, before we talk about money and business, let's just take a moment to just think about the world around us. Let's share a minute of silence in memory of those that have passed away, and say a silent prayer for those that are ill, and may God bless and protect the people of India. So I'm just going to mark us off for 1 minute of silence. Okay, it's important for us to be aware of everyone, and to understand we're part of this global community, and we really have to think about and pray for everyone around us. These predictions are scary. I'm thinking about predictions, if you're going to predict something and it doesn't happen, it's not so good. So you have to be very careful, not just what you predict. And I don't know that I can predict what's going to happen as much as I can have us think a certain way. There's a here and now. You say, what's going on right now? What was the diamond imports into you this past month? What are exports like? And that's a very good analysis to make for now. But future predictions is going to require a different time set, a different way of thinking. Now, I'd like to encourage everybody to see Avi Kravitz's tremendously good webinar about sustainable recovery, which is focusing on the here and now. You can send me an email if you need to, or if you can't remember the webinar address, the address to register for it, and I'm sure that the GJ Embassy have it. So I'm not going to necessarily repeat Avi Kravitz's presentation. I'm going to reach beyond. I'm going to go out to the future. So what do we think about? What's the mindset of the future? First of all, there's different scenarios. What we know, we know. There's certain things we know about the future. We know social responsibility is going to become a more important factor. We know the United Nations Millennial Development Goals are going to happen. We know that deglobalization is continue. The relationship with the United States and China, for example, is going to become perfect right away. So that's stuff that we know, and we can plan for those scenarios. We can think, okay, what does it mean if social responsibility is more important? Can I work better with my supply chain? What does it mean if I'm working differently in the dollar world or not? And so there's things that we can plan, sometimes complicated. Now, what we know we don't know, there's certain things we know that we don't know about them. We don't know if US interest rates are going to go up because there's going to be inflation. We don't know how economic and currency warfare is going to take place with the Bitcoins and with other things that are happening. Now, all these things are complicated, but we don't know how those things are going to work so that we can protect ourselves from them. And then we don't know what we don't know. That's strange. But no one expected the COVID-19 pandemic. So we didn't know that we didn't know about the pandemic. It just came as a surprise. It came out of nowhere. Or now I'm sitting here in Jerusalem and there's missiles flying overhead. Or the United States is leaving Afghanistan completely, and there's a whole bunch of stuff happening in the colored gemstone business. Okay, so there's a lot of things that are happening that we know about. We can plan for them. There's stuff that we know we don't know, so we can also prepare for them a little bit and say, what if this happens? What if that happens? And then there's just total surprises. And we need to think about that as we plan for the future. Alvin Toffler was an interesting guy, wrote a book in 1970 called Future Shock. He wrote another book in 1980s, but what he said the rate of change is exponential. In other words, things that change are happening faster now than ever before. The agrarian revolution was when people started to make farms and settle in one place instead of being gather hunters. It took a couple of thousand years to get to the Industrial Revolution, where they issued the first printing presses, or they created the first mechanical ways of doing things. And then, that 100 years later, 200 years later, we got the technology revolution. A lot of it was started when President Kennedy decided the US was going to put a man on the moon, and they had to create transistors. If there's no transistors, no computers, no nothing, no cell phones, none of that technology would have existed without this leap into space and saying, okay, we're going to the moon and we're going to make computers that are smaller and do all kinds of calculations with it. And now we're in the midst of the information revolution, where it's not just being able to get information and keep it. We're able to transmit information. We're able to share information. And then you see all those digital markets, and even things like Uber. You don't have to own any taxis to be the biggest taxi company in the world. You don't have to own any real estate. What's the name of the real estate company that just, sends everybody around? You can go and you can rent the space. It's not their space. So the information is the powerful part of what's going on today. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And you think about like digital marketing, but where are we going? What's the future like? So I'm predicting digital revolution. Now, digital revolution isn't just that you can communicate things, but the things themselves are smarter. A good example of this may be artificial intelligence impacting how you sell jewelry to what select group of customers. That's more like digital marketing a bit, but it's a digital revolution. You could have like, you put your hand out and you can see a diamond in your hand. You can have a virtual jewelry that you can see how it fits and stuff. But there's a lot of change that's going to be coming that's going to be based on the digitalization of society. Not just information, but the actual digitalization of society. I mean, smart thinking drones, for example, that can think themselves, or cars that drive themselves. That's not just about information. That's about, changing the transportation industry. Musk was saying that, he's going to have the ability you won't need a car. You just, whistle, you'll go on your iPhone, and something will transport you. So these are all kinds of revolutions that we should experience. And digital, most people don't understand it yet, but it's coming on strong, baby, really strong. Now, so that's one issue: revolution, change, outside, external change. But we need to think about what are the internal forces that we can control. So we can buy a computer, get a program. We can maintain our inventory electronically. We can use technology to cut diamonds a lot better. We save on the yield, produce excellent cuts. We can use digital marketing so we can identify customers. Those are things that we can do. But then there's things that are coming from beyond our world that are impacting us. Okay, and that might be new technology, or that might be social responsibility. All of a sudden, consumers want to know where the diamonds came from, right? All kinds of things that are happening that we didn't make them happen, but we're reacting to them. And a good way to think about that is to think about waves. Imagine there's a wave coming, right? And you're a surfer. So the wave is not something you created. The wave is just happening in the ocean, totally beyond your control. It's external to you. But then you're putting your feet on the surfboard, and that's very much your control. You're controlling exactly how you're riding the wave. And when you put those two things together, you get something called surfing. And here's an example of it. Okay, watch this guy. Okay, now everything's fine. Boom, whoa, he didn't expect that. Okay, so here's a guy, he's surfing. You look at his feet, he's moving his feet, he's shifting his weight, and then he thinks he's got it under control. And well, you know what? Life isn't so perfect. Sometimes the externalities grab you, but he stayed on the board. He's okay. His face is a little different at the end of this thing. But look how he raises his hand. I'm a winner, and maybe not. So this ability to interface, interact between external forces and what you're doing with your weight and your feet, this is the measure of success. This is where we're going. So let's take a look at a simple business model. Very simple, right? You get money and you make product. So a guy goes, he takes money, he buys rough, and he creates a polished diamond. So you can see this kind of a movement here, right? And then the product has to be sold to people, okay? And that's the marketing side. Manufacturing without marketing, not going to make it really. And then the people give you money, and you start the cycle again. So if we think about these three things, product, people, and money, and how technology actually impacts all of them. Amazing, right? Like technology in terms of what's your product? Is it synthetic diamonds? Are you cutting diamonds better? How is technology affecting money, digital money, credit, the ability to trace money with anti-money laundering, controlling how money is distributed? So technology hitting us here, technology hitting us here on the product, and the technology of people, digital marketing. How are you communicating with your customers? So an example here of just technology might be dealing with it, but laws might be dealing with it. A lot of different factors might be influencing each one of these three important functions or these important ways that we do things. And so here's a lot of a discussion of business forces. Technology affects digital socialization, political segmentation, actual movement towards socialism. These are all impacting all of these things. Taxes, boom, 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 definitely going to affect money and the desire of people to buy. So I'll use technology as an example, but all of these things that we're looking at over here, we want to think about how do they relate to these different pieces of the business model. And you may want to think about this later. You may want to think about yourself. What's your area of specialty? How are you adding value? But how do all these things that are happening in the future going to implement you? And then you can say, well, I have supply chain issues that deals with socialization, maybe with socialism even, deals with political segment, governments requiring things. So think about how do these different, and you may come up with your own things. Think about where is my future going to be with regards to money, product, and people? Because you're going to need to do all three things if you're going to run a successful business. Now, let's take a look also, for example, at technology a little bit. And what I'm trying to do here is not predict the specific futures for you, but give you a way to think about something. So let's take a look at diamond and jewelry expertise, which is important. I understand diamonds and know diamonds. I know how to cut them, grade them, sell them, talk about them. And look at these technology guys. They know how to use digital marketing. They know how to use the internet to provide product. So certain people that are low, they don't know diamonds and they don't know technology, they're out of the box. I mean, this box doesn't look like it's going to do much business. Here you have a lot of people who really know a lot about diamonds and jewelry, but they don't understand how to use the computer, how to use digital marketing. There must be hundreds of thousands of Indian companies sitting right here, and they need to get up here somehow. They don't know how. There's like this barrier here. And then there's people like the guys who are making tons of money owning Blue Nile, or look at those guys that are doing synthetic diamonds. They got $1.8 billion valuation they got somehow. But the point is these guys, they know technology, but they don't know diamonds from donuts. I mean, they really don't. And they still penetrate our business. They're zooming into our business. So high technology gives you easier entry to the point where you're going to get high diamond and jewelry expertise and high technology. This is the future. This is where the money is going to be. You say to me, can you predict the future, Rappaport? And I say, well, I can't predict exactly, but I can tell you, you're going to need to have high technology expertise and high diamond and jewelry expertise if you are going to succeed in the future in the diamond business. And I don't care if this is technology about cutting diamonds, selling diamonds, borrowing money for diamonds, or whatever it might be, or managing your business. But whatever it is, technology is going to be a very important key factor. Now, some people here find it easier to start with technology and they're out of the business. I mean, Blue Nile is a great example. And then they go and they buy and they learn and they understand and they get to the point where they're going to get high diamond and jewelry expertise. But we really need to think about these people and how to help them as well, because there are hundreds of thousands of people in India who need to figure out how to do technology. And one of the things we're doing with RampMan and stuff is to provide an umbrella of technology for people so they can jump into this box. There's just an example. I could be talking about government regulation now and how to deal with government regulations, or I could be talking about rough supply, or I could be talking about, other things, how to deal with political segmentation if you have a factory in Botswana. And now Botswana has said, we're going to take all that higher rough 2 carats and up, and we're going to cut it in Botswana. And I don't care if you're more efficient in India. I don't care if you're better. It's a political decision. And that's what's going to happen. So how do you deal with those political issues? Do you have expertise to deal in Botswana or not, or whatever you can do? So there's a lot of change that's going to happen around here. And all of these factors, and they may seem very weird and disconnected to you right now, but you can make up your own factors. But when you start thinking about what am I going to need here? What skills am I going to need? What capabilities am I going to want? And it can't just be the surfing. You know how to move your feet around. That may be okay, but you need to be able to change these changing waves. And again, focus on money, product, and people. That's what you need to focus on. Okay, what changes are you going to have to adjust to be able to do these things? In general, when we look at the world around us, we're going to see things that are physical, and they may be important, but by themselves, they're not going to be enough. You can cut diamonds as good as anybody in the world. It doesn't mean you're going to make money. If rough is too high, or if the economic situation in the United States or China changes, you're going to have to think about the economic environment that you're working in, like that wave. Just because you know how to jump around on a surfboard, maybe, but you need to catch a wave. You need to know where you are, the social capabilities that you have, and social, how you treat your employees, and how you treat your customers, and how you deal with all kinds of internet-y kind of things, which is part of socialization. People are communicating today, and they're using the internet. They're communicating differently. Even now with COVID in the United States, I'll show you, boom, Cigna went from $6 a share to $60 a share in the last year. $6 to 60. Who bought Cigna at $6? I mean, think of that. That's like 10 times income. I don't know, anybody can just make 10 times the amount. They outperform probably Tesla. But my point is, you need to be aware of the new environment. It's because they were able to transition into social, linking these two things. And you got to think about the political forces. There's so much change politically. And when I talk about socialism or socialization, but I can't show you at the time to show you videos about AOC or other people that are supporting the idea of a movement more towards socialism in the United States, higher taxation. That's going to have an impact. And for everybody in India, you can easily understand what's going on with Botswana and Rough, and also what's going on in India too. The political environment now is much more impactful regarding how people make their livings, and they're much more intrusive than they used to be. And so you need to think about that if you're going out 5 years. If you're making a 5-year plan and saying, what am I going to do? You have to consider all of these factors. You can't just be a physical diamond manufacturer or a physical dealer or a knocking on the door salesman without knowing how to use the internet to get customers, or not understanding what economic areas you should be working in, who you should be selling. I always have funny saying, I say, hey, we're selling diamonds. Let's try to sell diamonds to rich people if we can. Not just rich people, but and the political environment is going to bite your butt. You're going to do business and I need to see everything and this and that, and I need to know where the money's and the taxes, and there's so much happening in the political change that I'm predicting for the next 5 years. It's absolutely unbelievable. Now, obviously, supply and demand, that question, when will diamond prices go up? Well, we're pretty much in a free market. Well, look, I don't know now. 60% of the bids are coming from Alrosa and De Beers, so it's not totally free. But the suppliers did pull back. So when demand fell, they actually, they reduced supply. So they kept the prices pretty much. They reduced the quantity, but they kept the prices. So these external forces are not something that we know we don't know. Let's put it that way. We don't know exactly how De Beers is going to react. Pretty good idea that they're going to reduce the supply of diamonds when demand falls, because they'd rather keep inventory under the ground by them rather than leave inventory and polish. Don't forget, going into 2000, we had a pretty lousy situation where there was too much inventory. Prices just kept falling and falling and falling. So now, because of coronavirus, we've had a good situation where we've reduced supply, and now we have to hope that people won't oversupply again because they're overcapacity, too many cutting factors. But having said this, this is what really controls the prices: supply of goods. If De Beers would have continued selling large amounts of diamonds in 2020, prices would have fallen. De Beers didn't, prices didn't fall. If demand in the United States would have been increasing even more, although I don't see how that's possible, given the fact that that President Trump put out $900 billion, and President Biden now put out another 1.9 trillion. You're talking about 2.8 trillion dollars popping out there. It's huge, huge, huge. So that's increasing demand. So there are things that are happening that are kind of demand would fall because of Corona, but now it's going to come back because there's a lot more money. Supply would increase, but now it's being pulled back. So we're in a pretty good situation right now because we have, I guess you'd call it responsible players. And the fact that Indians stopped speculating on rough was a good factor. So when we look at these developments and the short-term developments were put out here by Avi, and I cannot advise people enough that they should see Avi's webinar. Okay, but he talks about sustainability, and he mentions 5 different things that are having a big impact. Supply volatility. We don't know what's going to happen with supply, and he's talking polished here. When you think about the amount of goods that are held at GIA and then they're released from GIA, but then manufacturing might be down 30-40% in Surat because of COVID. So goods will come out of GIA at once, maybe. So there'll be a surplus. And then there's going to be a shortage because the people in the factory stop cutting as much. And then Christmas is coming. So it's a real interesting time. So I don't know if the goods that are now going to come out of GIA probably hit the market in June, maybe July. But August and September, we might have shortages. People get used to, I can get whatever I want. And then boom, because the new goods coming out may be constrained because a lot of smaller manufacturers aren't manufacturing. Even big manufacturers may have less. So we're not looking at what's going to happen in 5 years. We're looking at what's going to happen in the next few months, which is Avi's approach. Rough restructuring and the whole way in which rough, and I think this idea that the Bears, now again, I can't say I confirm this with the Bears, but my understanding is 2-carat and larger rough are going to be cut in Botswana. And that's a big piece of business, okay? Digital efficiency, and I'm not just talking about manufacturing, I'm talking about selling, marketing. Luxury competition. People didn't travel, but now they're going to travel again. So where do they go with their dollars? The value of something isn't just based on the thing and what it does. It's based, or the price of something. It's based on the amount of money available to buy it. So, luxury competition will be there, but I don't know because I'm thinking about, what's going to happen with all this $2.8 trillion that are coming out. No, it's it's 2.8 trillion. And then this whole sustainable question. So these are all things that are right in our face right now. Okay. And the idea that there's competition about, the supply chain and all those things. So these are all forces that are hitting us right now. And if you go to Avi's webinar, you'll hear him explain these things. And then there's me showing up here. And I'm talking a much broader brushes, demand, supply, deglobalization, and the role of money and socialization. These are long-term trends. And these are things that are going to be like the next 12 months. Okay. These are things that are going to be impacting us as we look to the future. And, I can have views about these things. I can show you some information. But really, these are the things you need to think about. You need to say, well, what's going to happen with demand in 3 years or 5 years? We can help you with that. And, we can do consulting or whatever. But these are the things that are really important about getting a strategy, starting to think about where are these things going to lead us related to, related to this stuff, money, product, people. Because you think about everything, you're going to go crazy. If you focus on these 3 areas, then you'll be somewhere. So the idea is to focus your planning, focus your questions, focus your thinking so that you can compete in all of these areas using all of the new things, technology, socialization, marketing, questions about synthetics. Synthetics might be technology driven. Okay. So there's a lot of different things that are happening. I am now going to just stop. I have lots of things that I can show us about demand, supply, deglobalization, and socialization. But I want to stop, and I want to give the the panelists to ask any questions they have, dig in a little deeper, and I will have demand supply idea of socialization all worked out if they ask questions about this. So to the panel.
So thanks for that presentation, and we'll now go over to Sanjay Bhai. So once Sanjay Bhai shared, our export numbers, like that's what we do every month. We'll jump into Q&A. So Sanjay Bhai, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Martin, for the insightful presentation and your perspective.
Take a presentation off the screen. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so your perspective has always been very unique, very impactful, and you have always have, seldom a few people have the in-depth analysis and knowledge what you have. So thank you very much for attending and giving your time today. And just to, before sharing the trade data for the month of April, I would like to put it in the right context that if you must be remembering that last year has been quite like a roller coaster ride. A year ago, when the industry met to review the impact of the pandemic, the mood was at its lowest. There was a lot of uncertainty, I would say full uncertainty, and everybody was discussing about how much retail sales will be down, shrink, or how much capital would the industry lose. No one in the wildest of dreams could imagine that we would come out of this largely unscathed. In hindsight, the Indian industry can be happy that the decision to scale down or curtail or restrict the import of rough for about 3-4 months, and in turn production, helped the market recalibrate. And this served the industry well. Miners also played an important role to keep our business healthy during this pandemic. So our compliments to miners and definitely our trade members who came together, united, and took this decision. Before I have a couple of questions, 2-3 questions, I would like to share the import-export data for the month of April, which we normally do every month. We get together and share. So Ninath, can you put those data for a couple of minutes, and then I can proceed with the question answers. As you would see, the import of rough diamond for the month of April has been 1.575 billion. I cannot compare it with the previous month of April because there was no import in 2020. Next page. Export has been, gross exports have been 2.250 billion, and net export is 1.683, close to $1.7 billion in the month of April. The return consignment have reduced to show the impact of net export of diamonds going out of India. And now a couple of slides on the lab-grown diamonds. The import of lab-grown has been $80 million in the month of April. Import has been 80 million and the export has been 90 million. So this is the summary of month of April, and as we are in the 3rd week of May, I think the momentum of the rough requirement and the export orders is continued. And so you can take this slide off. So let me start with one I've gathered some questions from the industry members and I put them together. Just a simple question to start with. A year ago, Martin, would you have anticipated the retail jewelry sales to be ending the year with this high, or would you have ever thought that this might happen?
Well, the demand side of the equation, if you look at it, has been, well, we kind of expected, as soon as we heard that there was going to be a $900 billion push out there, and then they were talking about infrastructure, another $2 trillion. So the demand side of the equation is driven by the availability of money. And so we were pretty sure that things would look pretty good because of the amount of money being pushed in. It's almost like helicopter money. If you consider how much of it is out there, it's huge. I'll try to show that to you here on the slide. Right. $8,358 for every single American. And, you know, we were talking to pawn shops and they're saying it's like Christmas. This was last June, July, when the first deal came out, because the money that they're sending out there is huge. So I did think that we would have a reasonably good environment. I think that it's interesting to look also at, you look at India's exports, it came down very sharp, but by quarter 3 last year already, there was a nice movement of net exports of polished diamonds out of India. Again, we thought that the COVID was over. Okay. By quarter 4, we were jumping up. So I was watching the data. This thing was obviously directly COVID related, but everybody was hit. The question was the ability to go to digital stuff. So, you know, look at this for just a second. Look at Signet's share price. Now, this is from 16. They got killed. They got murdered. And it had nothing to do with COVID. They were pretty much, let's say, I'll show you the COVID. This is the COVID effect. But they got hurt because of social responsibility, all kinds of other problems that they had. And this is demand. This is the largest jeweler in the world, certainly the largest jeweler in the United States, maybe Chow Tai Fook's a little. So now look what happened in there. Now, in May already, their share price started to move. Now you can look at how much their sales were and everything else. But if you want to think about the future, what's interesting about share prices is that value is tied into them, future value. In other words, when the experts, so-called experts in the stock market, think that things are going to go up, they vote with their money. And so look, from $6 to $60, and maybe that's now, but this is May, but even here from $6 to $30, it's a 500% increase by the end of the year. So I was not that surprised. Just would show you one other graph, which is mind-blowing. This is the S&P 500, this orange line, and this is the 1-carat RAPI index. This is RAPNet. It's amazing how these things come together. I mean, it's just blowing me away. So they're growing very much along the same lines. So the wealth effect, now, if the stock market had crashed and stayed crashed in 2020, then I would have said, okay, I don't know what's going to happen with diamond demand. But as long as we saw all the cash being poured out there by the government and the stock market creating a wealth effect, you know, I felt pretty good about what was going on. And you can see here the 1-carat RAPI with the RDI kind of working together. You can see here the spread between the Rappaport prices and RAPNet. You can see the spread. It didn't get bigger, although, you know, we had a couple of years here, 40 belows and stuff like that. So bottom line is that here, like, look at retail sales. Okay, so we were in 2020. So okay, 2021 is looking a lot better in the first quarters. But you asked me about 2020, and I was kind of not so afraid about 2020 as you might think. I looked at our Rosa sales; they were going up.
So,
but I wasn't so concerned about demand. I
so
thought demand,
yeah,
U.S. demand anyway.
Extending the same question, I mean, how long do you think this momentum will continue? Do you think any significant drop in demand going forward when the stimulus money gets over, or when the travel starts, you know, the money spent elsewhere in entertainment and because, you know, what we are seeing last 6 months has been a unprecedented increase from USA and China. So, which are the two largest consumer in the world. So,
I don't know about unprecedented continued increases in demand. Okay, if we look at U.S. demand, but I do think it'll remain stable. In other words, if we look at overall U.S. demand, I'm just seeing where I have it over here. No. So anyways, if we look at overall U.S. demand, I'm just looking here with this. Here it is. This is an example of U.S. demand, what you're exporting. This will be about the same. Maybe you'll get to 6 billion, but you're not going to get this kind of growth again. The growth won't be there, but you'll stabilize. So I think it'll be steady and good. That's my thinking about demand. It might increase a lot in the, don't forget, Signet is not selling certs. They're selling regular goods. So I think that's going to be okay. There is a challenge coming from synthetics that one should not ignore, and we can talk about that later. But I'm
right. I have one of the question is from synthetics, so we'll come to that.
Okay.
You know, one of the in the presentation you had mentioned that there is a possibility. I mean, nobody's sure, nobody knows, but by September we might have shortage. You know, when everybody, you know, some retailers are worried about the last quarter, which is, you know, towards the fourth quarter of the year, that the traveling will start and the money will be spent on other things other than buying houses, buying cars, buying piece of jewelry, etc. So one side there is a possibility that there will be short supply of diamonds. One side there will be drop in demand. So how do you see that scenario coming into fourth quarter?
I think demand's going to be stable.
Okay.
And so I think we got Melly's in trouble, maybe a little bit, or different. Not in trouble, but it's different. We have a problem looking at U.S. import figures for Melly, but we can see the Indian net exports. I think that demand will be pretty much flat and healthy, and
Okay.
I think we're going to be fine. Okay, we
Right.
may reach the levels of 2019. I'm almost certain, which is very close to 6 billion, 5.5 billion of exports. And I do predict shortages. Look, it's pretty straightforward. I don't know how much manufacturing stopped in Surat, although a lot of people went home. And I didn't look at your numbers that you put out now in your exports for the last few months, okay? But this first quarter was before the second wave hit India. And I think that it's reasonable to assume production is down by about 30%. And that's maybe even with the bigger people, and a lot of the smaller people are just running away. So, I think that we're going to have less goods coming out coming out of the GIA or coming out in general by August, September. And those are peak times. And don't forget, a lot of the American demand is memo demand. So we have to look at the jewelry manufacturers to see what they're getting. Hopefully they will provision earlier. So they'll take some of what we have now. But then we need to think about what is going to happen with last minute demand. We've got to think of what kind of goods they are. Are they cert goods? Are they not cert goods? But I think goods are going to be a little tighter as we go into the Christmas season. Unless, of course, I hear Mumbai is doing better with COVID now. But I don't know. I mean, what's your guess in terms of production decreases? Because if they don't cut the diamonds, your supply is going to be less. It's not. This is something you can predict with great ease. So we'll see what there is some rough, but the production is what my concern is.
So going forward, unlike USA, the stimulus and the $8,300 for every American's pocket, nothing of this sort has happened in China. What is the reason? What's the China scenario? Why there is increased demand in last 6 months, especially the first 4 or 5 months? How do you see China as a market? What are the expectations?
China is a good market. Here's the United States trade deficit. Okay.
Right.
So really, America is, with all of the fights and the questions about, South China Sea, and we are on a collision path. The United States is on a collision path with China, no question about it. But China is still making these are 310. These are in millions. These are $310 billion. These are not. These are billions. Okay.
Billion.
Total trade. That means China picked up $310 billion, and in the goods only, and goods and services it's a little bit less because the United States exports. But anyways, the point is that China's getting money from the United States, and what's really weird is that as President Biden throws money out of helicopters, so to speak, what do the people do with the money? They go to Walmart and they buy Chinese goods. So that multiplier effect that you would expect is going to be lessened, in the United States, and the money's going to go to China. Now, China is very conservative. President Xi is or Premier Xi. He's a tough cookie. I mean, he doesn't care about money. He cares about controlling their economy, controlling everything that's going there. And he has his perspective. So China's demand for lower goods, if you look at the 30 pointers, just looking if we had the prices in here for 30 pointers somewhere. I don't know if I showed it to you guys this time. I didn't want to have too many slides. But if we look at 30 pointers, you'll see that they did not go up as much as other things, and they came down. So China is not, I think they're out of the big diamond business, okay? I'm just leafing through to see if I can see anything about China. But I think China's going to be fine in the 30s, 40s, 50s. The commercial goods, the wedding goods, they're trying to encourage people to get married and have children now. There's fewer women in China. So women are likely to say, you want to marry me, give me a diamond, there's a whole bunch of things going on in China. So I'm not at all concerned about the under the carrot market in China. Um, I would point out to you that China is now entering into the world of currency warfare. They would like their currency to be stronger. America and China, as I'm saying, are going to be butting heads. As long as America in the next $2 trillion, and they're talking about another 2 trillion in infrastructure, that money, well, I don't know, but that true, maybe come down to a 1 trillion, is going to be spent on infrastructure, which the Chinese can't get. So we have to see what happens. America could increase tariffs on China if things get hotter. And I don't know, my predictions are that with what's going on in the South China Sea, you might see some muscle going on, but I hope there won't be. But this is one of the things we know we don't know to what extent. But China demand, I don't see any problem with the under the carry goods. Those goods are not seen as American goods, they're seen as African goods. China supports Africa. I have no problems expecting China to be consistent. Again, don't look for the surges that we got in 2020 and 2021 based on how bad it was before. The badness has gone away, and now you just need to get used to having a regular, nice, consistent business without going crazy. So I think China's going to be fine. Don't worry about China.
Right. So basically, we so far you gave us your opinion on demand. Now, what is the situation at supply? Is the diamond mining going to shrink over the years, or would this result into a raise in diamond? I mean, medium to long term diamond prices. How the supply side, infinite supply we have been always talking about, finite supply.
I mean, we expect supply to decrease because of the mining scenario, not because of the De Beers or the erosion management. They're building a new mine, they're digging deeper, but there are no brand new mines coming out. Some mines have been closed. If prices go up a lot, maybe they'll open some mines, but I would assume that the price is that it's going to be reduced. There'll be less growth. And then the biggest problem for India is the shift to Africa. Being best and most efficient manufacturers is secondary to the politics of beneficiation. And so I would expect that most of the certs now will come out of Botswana. It doesn't matter how, when you start looking at the price per carat, so the small goods is going to be very much India, but you got to look at the 30 pointers and the certs and stuff like that. Chinese, I see a lot of these goods coming out of Africa. So that's a challenge in terms of the supply available to India. The general production, the blue line is carats, 120 million. We're not going 180 million again. This is carats, pretty much. Millions of carats. See the blue line, millions of carats. So we're down 130 million. It'll probably sit between here, 100, maybe go to 150. But we're not break. And look at this. This was like, and we had oversupply at 120. So, this is an interesting problem. In terms of dollars, when you see, the amount of carats coming down and the amount of money going up, these are all price increases here. So actually, when you look at, what's going on, the price per carat is reflected between these two numbers. I didn't show you a price per carat here. But the bottom line is that my estimation is that rough will be relatively tight because of mining. You can see here also the role of the Alrosa and De Beers against oil production. And we were up at about, whatever, these are numbers, I guess these are production. This is probably millions of carats or something. These millions of carats total production, yeah, this is KP data. So this is how much is being produced. I'm not sure if it's dollars or not, but you can see it over here. You can see here every quarter, the amount of carats sold and the value, okay? So these are your carats and these are your dollars. So the bottom line is that I'm not too worried about that. I think we have to look for stability. I think that's the key to the future. It's time to stop rocketing around, rock and rolling. This is an interesting one. This is showing you Alrosa and De Beers sites. And you can see this big gap here between 2020 and 2019. This was reduced sales by these guys. But then around August, September, they started to sell, more than they did in 2019. And 2019 was not a bad, there was no corona around then. But if we look at 2021, they started off higher, but right now they're less than they were in 2019. and the April, May, and the March stuff. So, I imagine they're going to manage their sites pretty well. I imagine their sites will be an important component of total sales. Okay, although it was less in 2020. So I think we'll be okay on the supply. I don't think there's going to be a shortage of diamonds. This is interesting. This is the rough imports and polished exports. This is how much polished was exported and how much rough was imported. And you can see over here, and don't forget there is consumption within India. Okay. So if you're buying this much rough and you're exporting that much polished, this is pretty nice industry. You're making money here. Now there's inventory questions and stuff too, as things change. And then here my guys annualized the first quarter, showing a sharp increase, okay, in polished exports. But this is not true necessarily because 2021 is not done. You just have the first quarter data. So I don't know that this is true, which is why but I don't know this is true because we certainly have seen a nice pickup in 2021. But I don't think the pickup in 2021 is as strong, as sustainable as you'd imagine. So I'm very much saying, go flat, baby, go flat. Don't kill yourselves. I did want to show this strange little mouse, okay? And what we saw before the COVID is the industry was in a situation where they tacked money from banks, they kept cutting goods, kept running and running and running and running. No one was really making any good money. And you couldn't get off this damn thing because of the banks and everything. Now, COVID disturbed everything. COVID came in and said, hold it a minute, stop this rough buying and chill out. And that got us off the that little mouse thing. And so now we're in better shape now. I think India is in better shape.
Definitely in better shape, profitability wise.
Yeah, because we're not killing ourselves anymore.
Right.
And also synthetics. And this was
okay. So I was just coming to that. Maybe you will have a better.
Well, let me just say one point about synthetics.
Yeah.
Synthetics have reduced the reliance of diamond manufacturers on rough diamonds from De Beers and the Narosa. So before, if you had 3,000 workers or 5,000 workers or a few hundred workers, you needed to buy rough to keep them busy. You're on this treadmill. Okay, you had to keep buying rough. But now you can just buy synthetics and keep the people busy. And so it took the heat off of this need to continuously chase rough, which I think is very healthy. I think it's very healthy. Okay. Yes. Now go ahead. You had questions about synthetics. So, you have work. You formulate your question about synthetics.
So I was coming to that. So we all know that there has been a very good acceptance by the US consumer for the lab-grown diamonds, and just wanted to know your view on behalf of the industry. That is it cannibalizing the natural diamond, or is it going to have a niche of its own or a separate business which will give an incremental new product category? What is your thought on that?
Well, first of all, synthetics are doing great because the retailer is able to charge a high price to the consumer. The consumer doesn't realize that synthetics are very different than natural diamonds because there's no scarcity. So wholesale, I should stop here for a minute. Wholesale prices for synthetics have dropped significantly, like 90 below the list I hear. And retail prices have not. So one of the most profitable areas of retailing diamond jewelry today is selling synthetics. And it's hard for people not to buy stuff that makes them money. The question is going to be the sustainability of this. You might as well ask me about cubic zirconia at some stage. The manufacturing of synthetics in China is huge, and it's just going to keep increasing. And it'll keep increasing until, it's going to be cost plus for the Indians, for the Chinese. Retail, though, is going to have a different experience. Now, when consumers start seeing consistently lower prices for synthetics, it's going to hurt this. It's going to destroy this idea that retailers can sell synthetics at prices close to natural. That's going to destroy consumer confidence in all diamonds. And that's the big danger that we're facing. I mean, even GIA, who I love, and everybody, let's sell this. It's short-term profits, but it's going to have long-term damage. Now, in terms of what's going on right now, I don't know if you were manufacturing jewelry, you have this Pandora story where they didn't sell much diamonds, but they use this game of this is more socially responsible, which it isn't. There's a lot of problems with those socially responsible claims for synthetics. But if I was a jewelry manufacturer, I have very consistent supply of melee. What the hell? Why do I need natural diamonds, which are a pain in the neck to get and the quality? And then there's questions about the sourcing. You can't track them through the production. You can't get source certification. So there's natural events. Now, I don't know why synthetics are going to be worth, or for how long synthetics are going to be worth more than cubic zirconia, say, or other. I think India is the largest producer of cubic zirconia in the world today as well. Or look at Swarovski. Swarovski has taken cubic zirconia and run it up the flagpole using design and marketing and merchandising and every other trick in the book. That's the future for synthetic diamonds as well. The challenge is that they're selling synthetic diamond engagement rings. And when De Beers sell, I'm selling synthetic diamonds for $800 a carat and it's smaller guns, okay. But what's really concerning to me is that there was an article in the Wall Street Journal, should you spend $30,000 on a synthetic diamond engagement? That's terrible because that's a total ripoff to the consumer. Those goods that you spend $30,000, that ring will probably be worth maybe, instead of $30,000, maybe $3,000 or maybe only $300 in the future. So we're destroying the element of, I guess, confidence, the brand, the generic brand of diamonds. That's my big concern. And that's why I won't deal with them. I don't put them in RapNet. I don't want to deal with them. I just don't believe that they're ethical because there's no disclosure about the fact that they will not retain value. And think what happened to synthetic emeralds. Anybody remember that story? This hurt the emerald market. Our synthetic rubies or lead-filled rubies. In other words, technology will always come up and throw challenges at us, and some of those challenges will be ethical. But I can't tell people not to produce synthetics if that's what the customer wants to buy. I just believe that the diamond industry is making a terrible mistake by not disclosing to the consumer that this product does not and will not hold value. So what is a retailer going to do if they come back 5 years from now and say, "Hi, can you buy this back for me?" And it's just what is he going to tell his customer?
So Martin, just to continue with this question, gaining popularity by the US consumer, higher profitability for the retailer. Do you think that it is time for caution for the larger sizes in natural diamonds going next few years? Will it impact any prices in few years' time?
Well, I think
Certified goods.
I think synthetic diamond prices will fall due to competition. So a guy selling the 1 carat ring with maybe a GI certificate with an HSI1 or something, and it's a synthetic diamond, and then he's selling it, and then Costco will sell it, or I don't know, maybe Signet will sell it, and then they'll sell it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. It's a race to the bottom because there's competition, and the cost of the article has no bounds. So then when consumers see that, so I would not want to invest or hold inventory in those engagement rings. Now, if you're talking about melee, it's a question like CZ. It's a question like, maybe there is a role for it in the smaller sizes, because it's uniform, easy to provide. But I don't think the big brands are willing to go there. Diamonds add sparkle, add magic to their stuff. And so I think that there's money to be made through the differentiation of who you and your brand is relative to the fact that you only do natural. So, but we decided not to put it. Maybe it's a big strategic mistake, but I took an ethical decision rather than a business decision on this one. But for the trade, be careful. Consumers are going to come back with this stuff. Who's going to buy it?
So
we're the largest recycler of diamonds in the world today at Rappaport. We auction them off. A lot of Indian customers buying. Pawn shops, whatever. And Israelis also buying single stones. Okay, so we have a recycle business. It's worth money, but we can't recycle, synthetics or LGDs, whatever they call them.
Martin, your points in your presentation about the prediction, one has to be careful, your perspective on digital marketing, and very important point was that diamond and jewelry business and technological expertise both have to be high to be able to be successful, competitive, and sustainable. These are the points which are taken well. Thank you very much. And
Sanjay
I
bhai,
would,
just one last,
yeah,
yeah, Sanjay bhai,
yeah.
and Badi, I think coming to what you're showing. So this whole deglobalization effect that we keep on talking about, what is the impact you see on diamonds, natural diamonds, lab grown, different markets? I mean, we've been talking
Look,
about this, but
I mean, look,
your perspective.
I put this GDP up here because look, China's GDP is approaching America. It'll probably surpass America within the next few years. India's way behind. But look at the value of each consumer. Okay. So you got 6 times per capita income. Rich people buy diamonds. The 30 pointers and 40 pointers for India are fine here, but this has got nowhere to go but up. That means if you look at China and you understand where they're going to increase GDP per capita and they're going to increase overall GDP. Look at the numbers of people. India is just going to keep going also. You know, India's got all kinds of interesting problems. But you were asking me about, what's going to happen in China. Stability is what I've been preaching over here. But this idea of coins destroying, you got to look at this stuff, guys. Everyone's laughing at it, but this stuff that we're seeing, China is now coming up with their own coins, which means they're going to try to control money, the money. And this dollar position that everyone has had is so strong. But the thing about these coins is it destroys the current banking system with interest rates. I would say to you, the greatest fear that you should have are interest rates going up. I didn't talk about it now. No one asked me the question, but if interest rates now are unnaturally low, it's like financial Prozac. It's like a drug. And I don't think that the policymakers in Washington and in Europe have gotten to this idea that they can control the economy by throwing money out of helicopters by just keeping interest rates low. But what's going to happen, I think it'll spin out of control. That's a prediction I would make, even though it's a little dangerous. If that happens, inflation's going to kick in strong. If inflation kicks in strong, interest rates will have to go up. If you're thinking about a 5-year, horizon, you should be thinking about 8%. What happens when interest rates, I'm talking dollar interest rates, go to 8%? It's going to shock the hell out of the markets. It's going to cause businesses to shut down. It's going to create some kind of a, recessional environment. Now, think about that, but also think about, taxes, think about wealth effects. They're talking about a wealth tax. I don't think it'll ever happen. Could you imagine what a wealth tax would do? They would want to know how much money you have. This is going to be the biggest thing for diamonds you can imagine. So larger, expensive diamonds, investment diamonds, they may become a thing. Okay. And so you need to be careful about that as well. Watch out for interest rates, everybody, because they're unnaturally, I'm talking dollar, they're unnaturally low. It's ridiculous. And be careful for inflation. And you'll see it with labor inflation in the United States. We're already seeing people say, I don't want to work. I'm getting enough money from the government. And, and if you want me to come and work, you have to pay me more. So I would just say to you, there are factors, financial factors. Look at this. Millennial socialism, people demanding things. What are companies? Here's the UN millennial goals. These are standards that are being adapted today. And so you need to be careful about these things. And also, there's so much change coming that we know about. We know there's going to be coins coming out of digital coins. We know that these sustainable goals are going to be pushed. We know people are going to be questioning why am I working for a company, okay, in the United States, which will affect how they think about diamonds. Environmental has become a hot issue, literally the word hot, okay? If you're younger, I'm already, I don't know, old enough that I'm not going to worry too much about, global warming, but my kids will. So anyways, you just have to know that there's going to be a lot of change we didn't talk about, and that you can't do much. All you can do is really plan to go steady. Don't gamble. Don't jump up and down. Just try to keep a steady hand on whatever it is that you're doing, and don't get off this treadmill. Where's that little mouse? Get off this. Do not buy rough based on future expectations. Buy rough based on your current demand, and anticipate what you see right now will probably continue. Okay, that's what I'm. Hope I'm not making you guys too crazy.
So on that happy note, thank you, Madi. Very insightful webinar. I hope for all our viewers, I guess you gave some excellent insight on the demand situation, the supply situation, deglobalization, socialization, lab grown. I guess we tried to cover it all, within this 1 hour. Thank you, Sanjay Bhai. Thank you, Madi, for this
Thank you,
very.
Martin. Thank you, Edie. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chairman.
everyone at Council. Bye.
Chairman, thank you. Bye.